Yeah, we'll just dive in. Tom Clark, commissioner of the PBA. You've been doing it as long as I can remember. When did you actually start as the commissioner of the PBA?
Let's see. So I started with the PBA in 2008, but
Okay.
I was named commissioner in 2011.
Okay.
So I've been commissioner for 12 years.
Yeah, man. That's a good run in any career as far as I'm concerned these days.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly have experience. That is,
Yeah.
if I didn't have experience in 2011, I have it now. So that's one part of the resume that's checked off for sure.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, you finally get to fulfill what is the going joke that college graduates need to graduate with 5 years experience to get an entry level job now or something like that? At least we got the experience thing out of the way. Tom, I will be honest, I wrote down a whole bunch of stuff about all the things that I wanted to talk about with you because even just within the last season, 2022's PBA season was one that I think was pretty darn cool. There was a lot of stuff that happened, and obviously, Belmo leading the points race by the amount that he does is one that I think a lot of people outside of the sport and even inside of the sport will gravitate towards, right? He won his 30th title, he wins another major, he's the best bowler in the world, but there was so much other stuff that happened. Is there something that stands out to you from this last year that it's like, and maybe I can preface this question one more way, besides Norm's finish, right?
That's actually the first thing that came to mind was Norm
Yeah.
sort of
Yep.
defining the season,
Hmm.
and not just because of the finish and the retirement type of announcement and how that all happened, which was beautiful, really, but also
Yeah.
what he did at the Masters. I
Yeah.
mean, it
Yep.
was incredible. I mean, he made a run. He led it. He was
Yep.
undefeated, and he could have won, and that would have been an amazing swan song. It was anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
so the heightened awareness that actually was our highest rated show of the year too, and the
Hmm.
most. I get the 15-minute ratings for every 15 minutes, and that match that was the most watched bowling match of the year, by a lot,
Hmm.
and that's all because of Norm Duke.
Hmm.
That's the thing that came right to mind. Now
Yeah.
you're trying to make me think about something else.
Let's
Uh,
dig in a little bit deeper, right? Because like I definitely want to spend some more time talking about Norm because that everything that happened
well,
in
the
Portland
world
also, and
championship, the world
yeah.
championship final match.
Hmm.
Chris Prather, who just I have a certain. I really love watching him bowl. I always have since he was
Hmm.
young. It's just he's almost like mesmerizing to me how he's taken precision and uh, his approach and just the way he bowls. It's very impressive to me. So I like to watch him anyway. But his match against Jason Sterner um, in the World Championship final that went to a sudden death roll off was pretty
Hmm.
exciting. Were you there? You were there, weren't you? I think
I
you were.
was not there for
You
that
were
one.
there.
I was there for all the animal shows the week after that. But yeah, I definitely watched that one live. I mean, how can you not?
Yeah.
That was a studded step ladder too. And then for Chris to come out in the way that he did, and even, not to even just to focus exclusively on Chris, like that's the first time that Jason's been in the hot seat like that right at the edge of it in a long time too. And to see him really, I mean, when during the whole World Series, Jason threw it great.
Mhm.
And that show, even though he didn't come out on top, like I still give the guy a lot of credit, even just to be there too. But yeah, that was that was a great freaking match, and to finish the way that it did was pretty awesome.
Every night. I mean, the World Series was a little unusual this year, and we were finally back after COVID, and so it was kind of trying to get back to normal, but it still was an unusual World Series, and there was a lot of hanging over the event, with everything
Hmm.
going on in bowling and stuff. But the finals of every show was really incredible. I mean, great storylines. I mean, I think we all love to see Kyle Sherman get his first, singles title on TV. We've been following his career. He and Brad, you know, just like you, making a mark on YouTube,
Mhm.
And so to see him grab that first one was pretty cool. Kevin Williams, I mean, that was another thriller match. I mean,
Yeah.
incredible. He had to strike to win his first title. You know, I love first titles at the World Series, especially international players. And then, of course,
Mhm.
Belmont didn't win his first one, but another one, you know, at the
Yep.
World Series to get his 30th. And, you know, so the World Series was pretty cool, all the TV shows.
Yeah.
And
Not and the doubles.
yeah, but EJ and Marshall Kent, that was a hell of a match. I mean, and you know, it was great to see those guys win. EJ Tackett bowled incredible on that show.
Yeah.
He really
No
did. I mean,
kidding.
I love the strike track stats and to see what he did at the level that he throws the ball. When you've taken the game to a level where no one's really seen anybody throw the ball like that. And to
Mhm.
have that amount of revolutions and that amount of speed and be able to curve it that consistently and accurately that he displayed on that show is like a textbook thing. I mean, it's incredible. So,
Mhm.
you know, but then again, then what that also reminds me of is a couple of really, really tough things about the season. Like Mark Roth wasn't there for that. You know,
Mhm.
we had a great Mark Roth tribute at the World Series, and his wife came, and that was something I'll never forget about this year. You know, and also right before or during the World Series, you know, we lost Bill Vint, and
Mhm.
Bill meant so much to the sport, but also to me and to the PBA over these last 10 years when we kept this thing together, and it was because of people like him, and he came to the World Series and he died a few days later.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
you know, it was really an eventful, kind of a tough year, but like you said, you know, kind of unforgettable. Every single event was pretty special.
And the reason that I asked that question is, one of the things that I wrote down right away was Don Barrett winning the Triple Crown.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
I mean,
third guy ever. And Dom's one of those guys that just like somehow just lived under the radar, but like right under it, like his whole career after he won his first world championship. It's just been like he's just always there. And then to be the third guy to ever win a triple, it was third, right? I believe it was Belmo and Mike
Barnes,
and then Dom.
Barnes has won it too.
Barnes has got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think
Um
there's a few more. You know, Pete Weber, obviously.
oh, I might be thinking
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
four.
Yeah, the Grand Slam and the Super
That's
Slam
it.
and the Triple Crown,
Yep.
they're all kinda, but just to be another Triple Crown winner is
Right.
especially a international player and, think of Dom and the World Series, the advent of the World Series when I started with the PBA, really did help invite, those international players. That's where he got his first, PBA title was the World Series, and he won his first major at the World Championship, and to see him become just a all-timer PBA, player and
Yeah.
win the Tournament of Champions it was cool.
It was pretty awesome. Couple other things that kind of stood out to me, Santu kind of coming out of nowhere, right? In Colorado, and then all of a sudden he's just better than everybody, like almost immediately.
His performance at the league was really cool. I mean, he
Yeah.
became like this guy you just had to watch,
Yep.
when those guys come around, not that often where you go,
Mm-mm.
every time they throw the ball, you want to watch them, The PBA League was really exciting. I mean,
It
what we did
was.
there at Bayside Bowl and the way it ended was impossible. Forget the Norm Duke thing. I mean,
Yeah.
before even that, it was just like, impossible to make up and it really you really felt like sitting there, you felt bowling at the highest level of sports. It's the way it feels in the heat of battle in a championship in any sport where the people that can slow things down and concentrate at those moments take things to another level and things that are easy for people at any other time when the air gets that thick as it did in that event in a game 5 deciding match in that environment, it's hard to perform. I was nervous. I mean, I had to pick the MVP award. I'm
Mhm.
sitting there and I'm going, And I was talking to Denise Roth, actually. I used to always talk to Mark Roth about it, and I go with whatever Mark said, you know. And so I was talking to Denise, and every shot there was a new MVP. You know, I'm going, wait a minute, it can't be what now it's. And then I was just getting nervous, and I'm thinking Arturo did all this, but I mean Kyle was so consistent. He was leading off, and I felt, you know, and it was like I was choking. I mean, so it was one of those things where the air got so thick, and it shows how great of a sport bowling can be when you just don't know what's going to happen. And you have to feel for the people that, you know, missed when they would never miss. And a guy like Matt Ogle, I mean, he made a huge name for himself at the PBA League this year. He already had won a title, but I mean, he was awesome at the Strike Derby. He was awesome for the Dallas Strikers. He you know, was the anchor man. He was the MVP for a while. I mean, you know, so it just it was one of those things where there was a bunch of them, and they kept changing every game and every shot. It was an awesome final match. So, and the other matches, the other days were cool too. So I was proud of that week as well.
I was excited. Like, obviously, I think the PBA League is actually one of the things that, as a spectator, is like it's like the most exciting thing for me. You know, I grew up watching team sports, right? So anytime that you can implement that, to me is super exhilarating. And then when they went through all the rebrands with the, you know, Chicago Hitmen and Waco Wonders, and I'm forgetting one because my memory isn't great and all that. It's like I'm already thinking about this, and it's like 6 months away, and then it finally happened, and it happened that way. It was like, wow, we're lucky.
Well, you know, that whole event, and you know, was rebirthed by our discovering Bayside Bowl, you know, and so being able to bring it there just adds this level of making it really special. And you know, it might be I mean, you know, the fans are really fair. You know, they don't root against anyone, but certainly you have to think that Portland Lumberjacks have a little bit of a home field advantage there in that building, and feel comfortable. But they also have a pretty damn good team. So I think that's one of the reasons they've won it consecutive years here. But
you can definitely give some of it to the fan base, but they're not the ones throwing the ball, and the guys that are throwing the ball on that team are pretty damn good.
That's the lineup that's been and then, you know, Tim Mack makes incredible picks every year. I mean, nobody else was thinking, let's take Arturo Quintero, you know, and he jumps up, Tim takes him, and he struck, I think, 7 times in a row at one point during that championship match. And he was just amazing to watch with his green hair and his reactions. His wife was unbelievable in the crowd. And and now look, Arturo lives in Portland, Maine now. I mean,
does he?
He moved there.
That's awesome.
That event and that building can change your life. It changed the PBA League trajectory, and it changed Arturo Quintero's life. So
that's amazing. I had no idea that he moved up there. That's so cool.
Check the Facebook page for Bayside. He's like giving lessons there now. The Bayside Bowl is going to put him out on tour as a sponsor. You know, it's a whole thing. So it's amazing how much impact that place can have.
And speaking of Portland, Charlie, who runs Bayside Bowl, is on the advisory board for the PBA League Bowler certification. How's all that going?
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you know, the leagues are on the floor now for the most part across the country, you know, for now in Bolero-owned centers. And bringing on those advisors, it's a great group. I mean, it's very diverse. They all have different areas they're all experts at almost everything in bowling. But, you know, Lori Mraz, the long time marketing and, you know, president, and ran Turbo Grips, and she's just a great marketing mind, and she has a great vision for all aspects of bowling, and has been on boards like the Hall of Fame board. I think she's the vice president of the Hall of Fame board now, and she's been on IPSIA boards, almost every board in bowling she's been on. So she brings that ability to see things around in a lot of ways, but specifically marketing. And then we have Parker Bone, obviously one of the greatest bowlers of all time, and then just one of the greatest ambassadors and cares about the growth of the game, particularly on the youth level, and understands what league bowlers want. And then we have Chris Chartrand, who's the CEO of Kegel. And, for me, he's always been an advisor for me because he's a great businessman. And Kegel has this unique perspective on the game. And so having him give his thoughts is really special. And then you mentioned Charlie. And Charlie, to me, has the greatest bowling league in the country. And we could duplicate that league all around the country, done. The bowling would be really surprising a lot of people with the type of people that would be bowling regularly in leagues. And Charlie's done it all in a very non-traditional way. I mean, you tell people that, in his league, they never bowl on a house shot. They always bowl on a PBA shot. They don't have any handicap, and they're all skill levels in his league, but there is no such thing as handicap in his league. They don't have prize money. So they don't put money in every week and then pay everybody at the end or anything. They want to win the banner, and they want to have fun, and they care about the game, and they connect it to the PBA already. Almost everything they do is counterintuitive to what most bowling leagues do. So in his perspective is another thing. And I think that's one of the first steps in this program being something that can bring a lot of relevancy to league bowling and grow league bowling. I try to, I tell the players and tell anybody that, the league bowlers are our best audience. That's the best audience for the PBA. And when the PBA was at its height, for me at least, in the 70s and early 80s and things, that's when league bowling was at its height. And more league bowlers, there's a bigger pool to watch and care and follow the PBA. And so if we can get more people bowling more regularly, caring about their scores and caring about the competitive side of the game, I think they're more apt to be our core audience. And so I'm really happy with the advent of that program.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that's I think that coming out, was something that surprised a lot of people. I think that it was I wouldn't say it was polarizing. We haven't gotten to that point yet, if we ever do, but it's something that I think it just piqued a lot of curiosity. And as a bowler, regardless of where you stand on, if there is a side, if you will, I hope it works. Because like you said, the more league bowlers there are, the better bowling is, regardless of who is facilitating it, if you will. So I'm pretty excited about it. It is something that's I will be keeping a close eye on. So I'm glad you guys are doing it.
It's not really a replacement thing or anything. It's just a very when we were, I was the CEO of the PBA when we sold to Bolero in 2019, at the end of 2019. And, one of the great potential benefits of having the PBA would be to create larger membership organization. And when you have 300 bowling centers and already have 180,000 league bowlers in those centers, and you have the PBA, you put those two things together and you can really do a lot of interesting things. And PBA Junior, another one. I mean, that's something we've wanted to do that I want to do that from day one, some kind of PBA Little League and have had conversations through the years. But once we have Bolero had the PBA, they were able to take that idea and run with it and make it actually happen. And that's really taken off and is a great program too. So there's a lot of great potential for the sports side of bowling when you have this many venues, when the PBA as a television property and media property can help promote the idea of go bowling, and you have centers all over the country, and it promotes it for all bowling centers. Obviously, we always have, and USBC leagues are still in all of these Bolero centers, and most of people that are in the PBA leagues, a lot of them, it's about half 50-50, something like that, are USBC USBC members as well.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. I like I said, it was just something that it was surprising, and I'm glad that it wasn't just like a fight, right? Because I think bowlers are really good at disagreeing about stuff. But no, that's good.
And
I
maybe it's
mean,
better if it's not a fight. I don't know. Fighting is a part of the game, I guess, in almost everything. And so sometimes you just it doesn't, as long as it's not a bad fight.
Right. Yeah, I mean, what just thinking about your 15-minute ratings, go all the way back to the Players Championship and the Midwest Finals. I'm sure that spiked up a little bit there too. Speaking of fights, but
yeah, I actually don't remember if there was a blip on that, but yeah, it's I mean, things like controversy, things that just happen.
yeah,
Are always the thing that I've always been proud of the PBA is it's always been real. I mean, if something happened, it's real. I mean, there's nothing concocted. There's nothing where we say we got to make this happen, we got to make this happen, we got to do this, we got to do that. It just doesn't happen that way. It all happens naturally because of the heat of the competition, because of the nature of the game, the personalities involved, and but when it does happen, like it does in every sport, it's usually good if there's conversation and if there's discussion about things, even if it's not always happy and positive, it's still beneficial to the overall growth of the game.
Yeah. It's there's no such thing as bad publicity. Is that kind of the rule there?
There is, but yeah,
I
don't
think
know.
sometimes there is. And speaking of good publicity, one of the big reasons why I reached out at the time that I did is, this will go up right around October 1st, October 16th, I believe, it will be the airing of the Jimmy Allen challenge. Tell me about it.
Yeah, well, it's one of the great benefits of the Fox relationship is that we get this window during the NFL season to follow an NFL game or lead into an NFL game, depending on what market you're in. And that is a very coveted spot for any television program because of the huge audiences watching the NFL. So for us to know that on October 16th, we're going to have a program on Big Fox right after, I don't know which game is before us, and it depends on the market, but let's say it's the Cowboys and the Packers or something, and you've got 20 million people watching television right at that moment. I mean, we come on right after it. So it's one of the great things about Fox. They first bonused us that show in 2018 when we first did the deal with Fox. And every year it's pretty much the highest rated show of the year. And so we've been we try to put something on that might appeal to a larger audience than just bowlers, but we always make sure we've got great PBA bowling as part of it. And so the Jimmy Allen Challenge is unique because Jimmy Allen is a really emerging country music star. I mean, he's become big in country music. He's actually opening for Carrie Underwood in Milwaukee on October 23rd. And I think
Nice.
now I will want to go to that concert. But but Jimmy Allen is really serious about bowling, and he's pretty good. He wants to bowl regionals. He practices every chance he gets when he's on the road. He's has friendships with a lot of PBA bowlers. He is dead serious about the game. I mean, he was telling me what oil pattern he wants, and he does not want a house shot, and he want so, and he's got just great goals in the game, and it's really exciting to see somebody that's so talented in another field and famous in another field take such interest and a shine to bowling. And now the PBA combines with him and creates this television show, and what'll be even unique about this event versus other celebrity events we've done is we'll actually have a concert right there on the lanes. So we're setting up a concert venue where Jimmy and other artists are gonna perform, and some of that will make it into the show. And then we've got some great bowling, and we'll pair up people like Jimmy and other celebrities with some great PBA players. Sean Rash is going to be there. Ronnie Russell, who's a country singer, he had to be there. AJ Johnson will be there, and Kyle Troop, of course, and who Jimmy really, really was excited to have is Pete Weber. And I mean, everybody knows Pete. Everybody knows who do you think you are? I am. And everybody wants him to be a part of their event. And so and I love Pete, and I love to watch Pete bowl. So I'm glad that he's going to be there too. So, it'll be another great exhibition of bowling, the highest level. You'll see the differences in between a great PBA player and a emerging player to a beginner, and see the differences in them. You'll just see cool people who really respect bowling as a sport. And best of all, really, for me, in my opinion, is the fact that we'll be on in such a great time on Fox to be able to get a huge audience and be able to tell people about what's coming up and just keep bowling top of mind.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. How much of a positive impact, or how do you kind of quantify like those external bodies, right? Because I think of obviously CP3 was a big influence for a long time, and Terrell Owens has been around. I mean, since he was on the Eagles, right? Mookie Betts.
Mookie, yep.
That's a big one. And now Jimmy Allen. And this is the first time that it's been a music star that's really kind of taken center stage as an outsider coming into the bowling world, if you will. How much of a positive impact, or how do you kind of quantify that? Does that really have?
It has a lot. And I mean, a real time example of that is, I think one of the great things that's happened with the PBA in my tenure has been landing with Fox. And before Fox, the PBA was on network broadcast television once in about 20 years, in about 18 years or something like that. And so now we're on 5, 6, 7 times a year on broadcast television with Fox, with more re-airs and a rebirth in the way the game is watched. And I don't think that Fox deal necessarily happens without the Chris Paul event and being able to talk to Fox about what we've done with that event, have them watch it and get a little bit of an interest that, sometimes people who aren't connected with bowling, it takes something like that for them to dive deeper, to be able to say, well, look at this. Mookie Betts is really a good bowler. You've got baseball, you've got, and they say, really? And then they built Fox did this entire promotional campaign about the PBA coming and used Mookie as the focus of this piece that they did, which I think was mostly internal. They were just getting they got the entire Fox sports team to know about the fact that they had the PBA now by using Mookie Betts to do that. And that was because they saw what he did in these Chris Paul shows before. And then they wanted the Chris Paul show. I think we had the first one, the last time Fox had the Super Bowl, I believe we had the Chris Paul celebrity event on the day of the Super Bowl before the Super Bowl came on. And so I'm just using that as an example of, people that might not be connected with bowling, like a potential sponsor, potential media partner, fans. If you're introduced to it because you have an interest in Chris Paul, or, we've had so many great stars on that show. We've had a lot of music.
Oh, yeah.
Lil Wayne, Nelly, Ludacris, and they take a shine to French Montana. Who could forget him?
Oh, yeah.
And the biggest upset in the history of bowling. But, and so you use that kind of as an entree to get the conversation started. And I think that event, the Chris Paul event's meant a lot. And the Chris Paul event's not necessarily gone forever. It's just gone for this year. It's not going to happen this year, but it could come back. So and Chris loves it. Last year's event, COVID got in the way of it. It kind of made it tough. And people that we had signed up, we had Kyler Murray and Devin Booker were both on the way to the bowling center when Devin found out he had COVID, couldn't come. Then Kyler Murray was nervous about what was happening with COVID, and was afraid he was going to have to miss Sunday's game if he got, so he said, look, I can't do it. And these things all happen right on the fly, and that made last year challenging, but that's been a challenge for a couple of years now. So, but no, there's been great experience with the Chris Paul, and I think this Jimmy Allen with the music angle will do the same.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited. I'm excited for it. You know, it's one of those things that, um, like I said a few minutes ago, bowlers like to disagree on things. Like, you know, it's bowlers that are outspoken like to ridicule, you know, the celebrity type bowling events because it's not, you
Sure.
know, it's
I
not
get it.
bowling, right?
Yeah.
But I think you hit on a really good point that if it weren't for the diversification of the audience of those events, that maybe some of this other stuff doesn't come to be. You know, if the Fox deal doesn't happen, where's bowling at? So if the CP3 Invitational made that happen in some way, it's a positive thing for bowling, even though it's not bowling. You know, putting it in
Hey, by the
quotation marks
way,
there.
ratings don't lie either. And
That's true. Yeah.
when you look back at 10 years of the Chris Paul event and you look at the ratings, and every single one is consistently one of the highest rated shows of the year, kind of
Hmm.
wherever it was programmed. It lifts your overall number for the year, so it makes your sales pitch different. It changes your demographics. When the demographics for that show, the average age is lower than the
Hmm.
average age of a normal show. I mean, all these things help help your big picture sales pitch to all the different partners that you need. Uh,
Hmm.
so so yeah, no, I think that that's been one of the great additions to the PBA over during my tenure here has been
Hmm.
being able to do a really cool celebrity event each year. The PBA League also wouldn't have launched without Chris Paul and his brother, and the way that it originally started in 2013 was celebrity ownership of each one of
Hmm.
those teams, and Chris was one of them. And we got a lot of people involved, like To or Jerome Bettis and Billie Jean King and who else? Chris Hardwick, Kevin Hart. I mean, a lot
Yeah.
of these team names are all because of those people who founded those teams. And
Hmm.
the general concept of celebrity team owners didn't necessarily work,
Hmm.
for from a financial standpoint, but it worked from the idea that it got it going. It gave us a reason
Yeah.
to get it going. It got a lot of publicity when we first started, and it launched it, and now we have something that's kind of special and maybe can grow in different ways. So,
Hmm.
yeah, every little thing, sometimes even things that don't work exactly to plan, usually have helped in other ways that are less obvious.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I love that. I actually forgot about the celebrity ownership thing, and as soon as you said it, I remembered Jerome Bettis just towering over everyone. That was except I think Jesse Buss was on that team, and he at least was like the similar height, but he
Yeah,
was half as wide.
yeah.
Oh yes.
We always wanted
Um,
to set up a race between Jesse Buss and To, because Jesse Buss is really fast, and yeah. But
I'd
I
pay to
don't.
watch that.
Yeah, that would have been great. I noticed To now at whatever age he is now, he's still beating all these young guys and running 4.40s. I mean, I don't know. He's a freak of nature. I mean, and he loves bowling. Let me tell you, when he
Hmm.
won last year, we're in a little text thread with Chris Paul, um, and To does not let Chris Paul forget that he won that trophy. I mean, here's the trophy. He brings it on car rides. He puts a seatbelt on it, takes a picture, and makes sure that everybody sees that.
That's I love that. Just lean into it. That's amazing. Uh Tom, I wrote down this well, it's not my last question, but it's one that so you and I first met in Milwaukee roughly almost a year ago, yeah, at the Players. And you know, in the conversations that we had there in Ohio, and just being able to just, you know, like I said, you've been the commissioner as long as I can remember. I think it's pretty well known, or at least it is to me, that you're kind of a bowling historian. Like, you have a pretty good sense of everything that's happened in professional bowling, and probably know a lot more than you'll even give yourself credit for. But I guess with having that, you know, I look at this last year and all of the cool things that happened. You know, one thing that we didn't bring up is Anthony Simonson winning 2 more majors,
Yeah,
right?
amazing. Yeah.
I think he's got 10 total, 4 majors.
Mhm.
He's 25 years old. It's unbelievable, right? you mentioned Chris Prather. The greatest bowler of all time, arguably, is on the PBA tour, and Jason Belmonte, and all these guys. The state of professional bowling today, 2022, 2023, where does that rank to you, like in terms of like eras in professional bowling?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, when I grew up, and so I think whenever anybody grew up and when they're like 10 years old, it's like I just was watching a documentary about the 1978 Yankees last night. That was
Mm-hmm.
my favorite team because I was
Mm-hmm.
born in 1969. And so all the players from, the 78 Yankees, Greg Nettles is my favorite player to this day, and there can never be a better time in baseball than right then for me. And
Mm-hmm.
in bowling, I was lucky because at that exact time it was Mark Roth and Marshall Holman and Earl Anthony, and that triumvirate on ABC. They seemed to be on every show, and they were really inspiring and different. And Mark Roth was a unique player, and Marshall was a unique player, and in similarly to the way that two-hand bowling became unique in this current era, in that there were plenty of people, who were dismayed by Mark Roth's approach to bowling and thought that it was they were just grip it and rip it, ruining the game and taking away, and obviously now we look back and say, well, that's ridiculous. And it's kind of the same thing I think that you'll see with two-handing. There's plenty of people who think that all the two-hand stuff is crazy, but it's also just an electric, really, time in the history of the game because it's totally changed. And you don't have to be two-handed. I mean, there's plenty, like you mentioned, Prather and Dom Barrett and EJ Tackett, and Kyle Sherman. We talk about all these people that are great players. Sean Rash and Bill O'Neill have had long, almost 20-year careers, bowling one-handed. It's not like you have to be, but it exists now, and it creates this entirely new dynamic. And the other thing that's really new now that didn't exist when I was watching is this international flavor. There was no such thing as people from Australia, the only international player of note was Amleto Monticelli until Mika came along. And then at that point, there was basically two. There were a few along the way. Really, the PBA had basically two international players. And then with the advent of the World Series over these last few years, there's players from 25 countries and guys like Jesper Svensson and that are populating the tour and adding a different element of personality and rivalry. So you have to say it's pretty exciting. I mean, it's exciting to be on, broadcast television again now. It's exciting to look at the players that we have. Kyle Troop is one of the most colorful players in the history of the PBA. Now, what's interesting is before him, it was Guppy Troop. So
Right.
like the earlier eras didn't have a colorful troop, And I mean, and whether Kyle or Guppy, which one was more colorful, I think that's up for grabs. I might go.
It is. There's a fight to be had there.
But Kyle has shown an incredible ability to refocus his game from being a sideshow to a dominant player. I mean, he won the playoff this year. He's the end of the year. I mean, he was unbelievable. He won the Strike Derby. He won the MVP at the PBA League. He won the playoffs. What else did he win? He won something else, and he was awesome at the PBA Tour Finals, which another one.
Yep.
Belmo won, but so you have these great personalities, incredible talent, exciting ways they deliver the ball. There's been eras of the PBA where the people maybe that rose to the top didn't have the kind of ball reaction or ball motion that you see now, and the pins maybe didn't react in a way that they do now. That's flying. And then you have people like Simo, like you said, who, he could step up tomorrow and bowl backup and win a PBA tournament. So the talent level I don't know that there's ever been a higher talent level. I think the consistency and the relevance of my era, the 70s, 80s,
Mm-hmm.
was probably higher then. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the relative amount of prize money then versus today was probably higher then. But our concentration on the major championships is better now than it was then. Our concentration on the way the ball's delivered, I think, is better now. I think that the international flavor is better now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the way that we televise the game, I mean, I wish there's a couple things I wish from the 70s. I wish Earl Anthony was on a show with Dr. J. You know, that would have been a hell of a show.
Yeah, would have.
We've had Belmo bowling with Chris Paul. We've had Jason Couch bowling with LeBron James. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I wish that back then we had the strike track graphic to see Earl Anthony's consistency and his ball speed, and we have that now. So that's better now. You know, so there's a lot of things that are better. There's a lot of things that we need to go back and look and say, well, why did they have a certain level of relevancy and consistency back in the day, and try to improve in those areas now. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'd put this era up against any.
Yeah, I would too.
The next guy that's older than me will say, well, wait a minute, you're missing Dick Weber. You're missing, you know, you're missing Johnny Petraglia at the height of his powers. And you're not talking about Don Johnson. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so, and then there'll be people that are younger than me that say, well, what about Mike Albee and Dave Ozio? And, you know, it's like everybody's got their favorite little window of time. But I
Mm-hmm.
think kids growing up today are going to have a hell of an era to look back on.
That's kind of where my thought train was going, is like, I look at the state of youth bowling, and you actually have a much better picture of it than I do, because your son bowls for Whitewater, right?
Mhm.
Like, I think that youth bowling is at this really interesting, like, I don't want to call it, like, it's a proving point. It's not a make or break point, because it's not going to break youth bowling if it doesn't go perfectly well, right? But there's so many youth bowlers that are in that college age range, and a
Mhm.
lot of them have a ton of talent. I mean, it's
A lot of them
pretty
are
unbelievable.
related. A lot of them are related to PBA bowlers. I mean, you
Very true.
know, I mean, Chris Barnes' son, the Parker Bones sons, Del
Yep.
Ballard's daughter. You know, it's unbelievable. That's why we did that special King of the Lane series about families. And
Yeah.
yeah, it is. Wes Malot's son, Jordan, is unbelievable. I mean,
Yep.
you know, so you have you have this next generation. But yeah, no, I see a lot of
It
this in youth bowling, junior gold, and
Mhm.
PBA junior, and all these different regional tours that exist for youth bowling is much different than when I was growing up. I mean, we had
Yeah.
probably a lot more youth bowlers, and we had our junior traveling league type situations, but there really wasn't this national championship and regional tour. You know, these kids
Mhm.
these kids are bowling in events that when they bowl a PBA event, it doesn't really even feel that different.
Yeah.
It feels extremely familiar to them, and they can make that jump a little bit easier.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think of Nate Purchase, who won the PBA Junior, right? And now he's bowling. I think he's a senior for Whitewater, and it's like, the day that he makes the ITC show, right? That they did this last year. It's just lights, man. It's just got, they just grow up with it.
He's only a
I just
sophomore. He's only He's my
He's a
son's roommate.
sophomore.
My
Is he
son's roommate.
really?
Yeah, yeah.
God,
So yeah,
I give him much too much credit. Nate, if you're listening to this, I don't think you're that mature.
no, well, he isn't that mature. That's good.
That's
But
great.
he's a great future talent, and I mean, and he's already bowled PBA events, and you have guys
Yeah.
like Eric Jones. There's a few kids that just say, you know what, I'm just going to bowl PBA events and not bowl in college, and
Hmm.
then you have the college bowling that is just keeps getting deeper and deeper. Um, uh, but uh, but yeah, it's really remarkable the ages sometimes when you look up. I love the Teen Masters event and
Yeah.
seeing the kids
Hmm.
that do well there and go, wow, these guys are going to be good for a long time. I mean,
Hmm.
so
I I just think when you pair that volume though of bowlers that obviously grew up in the sport, they're really interested in it to the point of wanting to excel, in the game. You pair that with, like you said, professional bowling is on more broadcast TV by the hour and by the episode essentially today than more than it has in 30 years. And in the amount of talent that's on those broadcasts is arguably some of the highest that the human race has ever seen.
Yeah.
At least in certain ways. And
And look,
I was just gonna say, I think when you put those,
I just don't want us to forget. Look where you are right now on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube is just an unbelievable tool that we never had as kids, and they, these kids watch on demand. Our YouTube channel's really been done well. I mean, it's got like 300,000 subscribers, and shows get 1 million views. I mean, and I just know that these kids are eating it up, and that's really where they can slow it down. They can just you see kids practice or be coached, and they have a phone with them, and they just here's me, here's Belmo, here's me, here's Simo, here's me, here's Chris Vi, and you just try to emulate that. You can get so much better faster because of this media, and YouTube's unbelievable. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. You're good. Cause that's another big element, you think of, and there's obviously the instructional element, whether it's self or you guys are working on a YouTube series with Randy Peterson now. That's pretty cool too. You've got that side of YouTube. You've got the entertaining side of YouTube, which consider me an entertainer, I suppose. You've got the personal side with Brad and Kyle and Darren Tang and some of the other guys that are doing it now too. And like, there's all of these things, all of these positive things that are happening at a time when there are so many 14 to 24-year-old bowlers. And that to me is one of the things that bowling had kind of lost for a while. And the reason that league bowling went the way that it did is once they hit that mid-20s range, we like a lot of people just fell off, right? We had a big exit rate there for a while. I just wonder like how much of a positive impact it's going to have on extending the life of a bowler, right? In that league setting, and then backing that up, right, with the PBA League bowler certification stuff and having programs like that and being all positive. I've been arguing for, on the internet at least, and before that even still, that bowling is nearing a renaissance period. It's gonna do something. And as all these variables coming together, I can't imagine that it isn't something positive. But you've been doing this a lot longer than I have. Am I crazy, or am I gluing too many things together?
It's there's so many factors that are out of your control, and but it's fueled by a belief in the game. The game itself is really a remarkable, invention, and I think will endure. It has there's something about it, I think, that's just in human beings' DNA, and now we just need to keep them connected to it. There's so many for people that want to argue, about what bowling has to do. They sometimes leave out some things, and it's like, well, you have to have places to play. So you've got to have bowling centers. It's not like basketball where you can go down to the school and play in the schoolyard. And it's not like, it's a sport that competes at a places that are businesses, and so you have to have a successful business in order to, stay and maintain and be a place to play. And so in order to have that, sometimes places have to make decisions that aren't completely in line with what someone who has only the sport of bowling in mind. So you got to bridge the gaps. You got to bridge the gap. And that's kind of goes to a lot of things we've been talking about just this hour, and I think so. I think you're right. I think that, people bowling seems to be doing really, really well in that people want to get back out. They want to socialize. They want to be active, and it's fun. And if we can get them to not only see it as fun and just like a 1 day a year thing where, oh yeah, bowling, that's great. But if we could just get them to come back a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
to buy their own ball,
Yep.
get them to get coached, get them to get a lesson, and suddenly see things that make them kind of like Jimmy Allen,
Yeah.
once he's bitten by the bug and he wants to get better, you can't keep him out, of a bowling
Yeah.
center. And
Mm-hmm.
so he wants to bowl, and he wants to bowl in leagues, and he wants to bowl in tournaments. And so, all those things are available to people. And so we just, you got to keep making them aware and keep getting that bug out there. The reason why we just believe in it. So that's why you keep fighting.
Yeah.
If you thought,
Yeah.
well, there's no use, or it's, whatever, it's gone, it's an old thing, it was popular in the 50s or whatever, if you just have that attitude, you might as well get out.
Right. Yeah. Just hang the shoes up, because you ain't coming out in a positive way at the end of that thought. No.
And they're wrong, and they're basically wrong. I mean, certainly
Mm-hmm.
there's way more things to do now. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's just like television, and comparing the 70s when I watched Earl Anthony on Saturday afternoon, and there was one other college football game on that entire
Yep.
day, and it was like a game that I never would watch. And now on Saturday afternoon, every single college football game is on, and I can watch whatever game I want. And
Mm-hmm.
and so it's the amount of competition for television attention is similar to the amount of competition for leisure time. And so you have to figure out ways to maintain relevancy. But when you start with the core of how great the game is itself,
Yeah.
you got something to build on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I have two more quick things. Well, one might be a little bit longer, but I know, before we
I just talk too much. So,
it's all good, man. It's all good. You are the people that those that are listening want to listen to. I get ridiculed all the time for rambling when I have other people on. So, no, first thing, and this is probably a shorter one, is I know that you guys at the PBA are working on schedule. You're working on getting all of that information released out once it's all solidified and all that. So I know that there's maybe not question marks, but you're in process, right? But one of the things that is for certain is the Masters is going back to Thunderbolt, and I know that is a place that you really do appreciate. Is that how does the arena, right? It's the arena. How exciting is that for a guy like you?
Have you ever been there? Have you been to
but I'm going to bowl this year.
You gonna bowl the Masters?
I'm gonna bowl the Masters as long as I can get in, which I should be able to get in. My plan is to bowl it and do. I'll have to bring somebody with because of filming rules and all that. But the plan is I'm going to go to Detroit and go bowl the Masters.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I love Thunderbolt. I mean, the main bay is great too, and the lane is great, and the people in Detroit are true bowling fans. They know what's going on, and so you pack a place like that, and with people that care. So that's the first step. But then the arena itself is just it's historic for one, but for two, it's just high ceilings, and it looks better on TV, and they have a big giant jumbotron screen in there that no other bowling center has. And so it's just it's definitely a romantic place for me. It's where the first when we had the concept of the World Series of Bowling, it had to happen at a special place, and that's where we did it. Because of all that it offered and the amount of ways you can move things around and set up TV in here, but hold a giant tournament out here. And so, I mean, I think you'll really love the area and the people and the venue. It's cool, and the ownership and the general manager there is great, and so they really take care of the bowlers and understand what bowlers need. But I was really happy to. Well, it would have been great in Reno as well, although it wasn't happening at the bowling stadium in Reno. It was originally at the Grand Sierra. the USBC Open is in Reno this year.
Mhm.
So it moved, but can't complain about where it moved to.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's one of those logistical things where it's we're okay with it.
And
Uh,
The US Open's in a great venue as well,
yep,
uh, at Woodland
at
Bowl in
Woodland. Yep.
Indianapolis. Those are two of my favorites. I mean, they're two of the greatest bowling centers ever. So.
Yeah, for sure. And it's being relatively local for me, I will very much say thank you. And it just
Have you ever been
to
to
all of
Have you ever been to Riviera Lanes?
I was at the whole TOC this last
You
year.
were
Yeah.
there. Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Yeah.
place is kind of dripping with history too, and I think we're
Yeah.
gonna keep it up, right? But when you walk through that building and you think about the people who've been in here competing and on that pair of lanes, 27, I mean, that's special too. So I think we've done a good job in recent years of being in the types of venues that bring out the best in the players as well.
I would completely agree with that. Last thing, Tom, and this is a question that I ask everybody, even just in life, but especially on the podcast here, because it's a challenging question, but also most people typically are pretty good with answers. Is let's go back to 2011. You brought into the PBA. You know, what if you could give yourself advice back then? What would the piece of advice you'd give yourself back then be?
Yeah, I've never really thought of it, to be honest. I really it's been kind of a constant
Yeah.
go every day, and I think there are things that I could do back then or would do back then, even without experience that, would be better than if you have the experience to not do them, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
You
for sure.
know, but I think the main thing that I don't even know if it would be 2011, it would be 2008 when I first started with the PBA is I kinda
Sure.
came out guns a-blazing, and we're gonna try a million different things, and we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and I think it was a little overly ambitious because it was just all the stuff I always wanted to do, and so I tried to do it all right
Mhm.
away. I think I would learn to have a little bit more consistency and a little bit more um, of a regularity, because I've learned that it takes people time to catch on to a concept, and if you throw too many concepts out, they're not going to grab hold of what you're doing, even if in your head this makes total sense.
Mhm.
Think
Mhm.
I've always had a pretty good, understanding of trying to be the audience myself, even coming from other jobs I've had at USA Today and things, always, trying to do things, produce things with not your own mindset, but the mindset of the audience. And so I've always had that, but I think I've learned that the audience could use a breather, you know,
Mhm.
and so could you know, people you're working with, the players, you want there to be a stability, and I think if I had the presence back then to to be a stable force, and gain the respect a little bit through that more than just by going, well, look what I did, look at this, we did this, we did this, we did this, and I was a little bit anxious, I'd
Yeah.
say. So just
Yeah.
kind of just chill out. Yeah, everything's gonna be all right. I'll tell you the real time when I was most nervous about the future of the PBA was 2013, a couple years into being commissioner, and when the previous ownership made me the CEO, and I hadn't really um, been a CEO, of a company, and so there were a lot of aspects of that I hadn't done before, so I was nervous about that. So that guy I would tell, don't be nervous about that.
Mhm.
Just say what you're doing. Don't think you have to say it perfectly, or you're gonna be thought of as just you're going to lose all credibility, and that's what I was
Mhm.
afraid of. And so that made me a little bit uneasy during that time. But at that time, we had to do a lot of cutting. There was a lot of things happened at the same time. We had to we had to really keep the PBA alive. And the other thing I would tell myself back in that 2008 is those people that were working on the PBA, you know, I think I did, but you know, treat them well, because they were the key. I mean, there were people that that kept the PBA alive through really one of the most trying times in the history of the sport, and they gave us the ability to sell the media rights, to get on Fox, to then be attractive enough to have a new ownership group, Bolero, come in. And those things, I think, no matter where I am or what happens with me, I think that those two things will help propel and continue the PBA on forever, you know. So and there were moments when it seemed like maybe it wouldn't, you know, and even when we were trying to get to Fox and we were on ESPN and it was tough to leave, and you know, there was a chance we'd end up empty-handed, you know. And so to land where we did and then gain the new ownership from great owners before who really did save the PBA, but they were done. You know, they were out of investing. They were, which is completely fine, and it was up to them. I mean, those guys are all in the Hall of Fame where they belong, the previous owners. But they found we really found the right buyer, in that the success of all of their bowling centers, you know, can be tied to the PBA, and they've been the greatest. Bolero, for whatever anybody's feelings as things move fast, you know, things have progressed. There's been no greater investor in the sport of bowling than Bolero, and so I think that the future is bright because of that. And I'm not sure if that answered your question, but I think it goes back to that rambling thing.
It does. It does. You got there. Patience. That's what I heard. Patience.
I think patience. Patience, and that's a great trait in bowling too. I've never had that. I tell my son that all the time. I tell my son to be patient. You know, and I didn't have patience. I don't think patience has been the most difficult thing for me to learn, honestly. So I think you said the word. I was just saying all kinds of things. That's what I would say. That's what I would say. Patient. You know.
Yeah. It's all good, Tom. It's all good. Well, anything else that you want to tell the listeners and viewers about, or do we hit all the things that we can talk about in the middle of October here?
Yeah, stay tuned. I think you'll see a lot of I mean, if you're on YouTube and watching this, hopefully you subscribe to the PBA's YouTube channel, and hopefully you know, hopefully when it becomes possible to be a part of a PBA league, or if you talk to your bowling center and they're not necessarily Bolero yet, or you're not in a PBA league, they will have the opportunity to join in the near future. And so I hope that you encourage your bowling centers to do that, because there's a lot of great stuff coming down the pike for the PBA League. And then, just stay tuned to PBA.com and the social media, because the season schedule will come out pretty soon. And I appreciate everybody's patience on that. And, you know, I think you touched on it. The players that we have today are really inspiring. And they've been, you know, you're looking for ambassadors. You're looking for people that get other people to want to get better at the game. I think we've got a great crop right now, and not just that top 10, but all the way down the line, and the top players in every region. It's always really impressive, just even to go to a regional. If we don't get around to your city, find a regional, get out to one, because that's the best competitive bowling that there is. And we get around to 150 different cities, you know, every year with regionals and senior tour events. And so hopefully fans take advantage of that. But no, I appreciate what you guys do and all the growth that we've had on YouTube and podcasts. And it's kind of like the new bowling media. A lot of people think that the bowling media has gone down, which it has when it comes to traditional media. But the new media is kind of, you know, we should just all keep continuing to promote each other and get more and more people talking about bowling.
Absolutely. I completely agree. So, thank you very much for the time, Tom. I know it took a little bit to get you in here, but I'm glad that we got to have this conversation. And I'll be watching for the schedule. Hopefully, we can touch base again. Maybe mid-season and see where we're at after that. And well, at the very least, I'll see you in Detroit. So
yeah, you better start practicing, man. I'm telling you, the Masters is a great tournament to bowl though, because I know you look at it and you go, wow, I could make the top 64. And then you say, well, a lot of guys do. I might be able
not this guy.
It's really where the most upsets come. But then again, then you see, Belmo's won it 4 times and Simo's won it twice. And, but it's where upsets happen. And, you make that top 64, you're bowling 3-game matches. In a 3-game match, you could beat anybody. You can get that right focus and the line and the ball and everything just kind of match up, and suddenly you're in a tight match with Chris Barnes. But that does remind me of another thing before I let you go. That was from this season was on the PBA 50 tour. John Burkett winning his first title.
Oh yes,
that was big. I mean, and the reason why it reminded me was he beat Barnes like 770 to 760, something like that, in a match to make it to the show. If he had to get by Barnes, and that's and like Berkey said, I mean, it's the greatest accomplishment of his sports career, and we're talking about a guy who was a Major League Baseball all-star pitcher for years. It meant so much to him, and the reason why all these titles mean something to people is because of who you beat when you win a PBA title. Chris Barnes is in that field. I mean, if Chris Barnes is in the field and you win it,
you earned it.
It's special. Everybody talks about lane conditions and balls and all these different things. The number one ingredient of the PBA is the players, and the players are what make it special. So that's what
absolutely. Well, I'm excited to see those players here soon. I'm really excited for this year. Best of luck with everything as you're kind of wrapping up preparations and all that. And I look forward to it, Tom. So thanks again for the time. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks everybody.